Hello everybody, my name is Damien and I'm the General Manager here at Tenterfield Shire Council. What I'd like to speak to you about today, or over the next few minutes, is Council's recently adopted draft delivery program for the next 4 years and our annual operational plan. These documents, or this combined document, has been adopted by Council recently and has been placed out for public exhibition now for comments for the period of the next 28 days. That period will close of business Wednesday the 10th of May, and we welcome submissions that may come from the community. This short film today is another initiative of our community engagement. We're trying to improve access and flexibility for people to become aware of our documents, become aware of our operations, and be involved and be able to provide input without necessarily having to go to structured meetings at structured times from the comfort often of their own home. So just working through the document over the next few minutes, I intend to outline some of the key areas and some of the key items within it, so to make it that little bit easier for you to navigate through, or potentially to go to those sections of most interest without having to necessarily read through 100 pages of the document. For those who wish to read through the pages, we welcome that, and it's really good. But for a lot of people who are time poor, it's important that we offer flexibility to be able to get to those sections of most need, to look at them and still potentially be able to get a submission in from you about your thoughts. So if I move straight along to page 5 within the document, you'll see on the right hand side we outline the background to our strategic planning and performance framework here at Council, or what we refer to as IP&R in councils in New South Wales. Without going through the details of that, I'll let you look at it, other than to say that these documents, the delivery program and the operational plan, form part of that framework. They sit underneath Council's community strategic plan and our resourcing strategies, 3 resourcing strategies in total, a 10-year long-term financial plan, a 10-year asset management strategy, and a 4-year workforce management strategy. Now, all of those documents have recently been adopted by Council following about 6-month community engagement program, which a number of you will be well aware of and have been involved in. And obviously now we're looking to get to the more detail, the 4-year plan, how this Council intends to deliver on that overall 10-year community strategic plan, and the operational plan, how the organisation tends to move that forward over the next 12 months, as well as some specific details around fees, charges, rates, and the like. Across from that page, you'll note the lovely photos of our 10 elected representatives of Council, the 10 community elected representatives who came in September 2016 and will serve until September 2020, and whom sit over the top of this delivery program, or their Council term planned for the next 4 years. If I move right along now to page 8 within the document, we'll see the commencement of the specific areas with relation to the delivery program of the document. Within that, what you'll see is a lot of strategies that are being outlined the Council intends to undertake to deliver on the goals and objectives detailed in Council or the community strategic plan over the next 10 years, and how specifically they intend to pursue that across the next 4-year term. The document is structured in and around 5 key theme areas, the first one being our community, the second one being our economy, the next section being our environment, our leadership is the 4th, and our transport is the 5th. For those au fait with the process, it's referred to by us as a quadruple bottom line +1 being transport being split out just with regard to its sheer enormity to local government, its size, and not looking to be dwarfing or overbearing any of those other quadrants within the plan. The next section of the document is that specific section with regard to the annual operational plan for the next 2 years, starting on page 17. You'll see next to it on page 18 is the index of the services that Council undertakes. Now, this is an important area to look at because Council undertakes 24 key services. They're as diverse from each other as theatre and museums, to transport networks, to livestock sale yards, to planning and regulatory services. In here it outlines those different services, responsibility for managers, and then over the next 48 pages goes on to outline each one of those in a 2-page format with greater specifics. So just to labour that a little bit further, I'll move on now specifically to page 27, which is our theatre and museum complex service. And I'll read from the document just to give you a little bit of an understanding of what each service will detail within this plan. The service description for the theatre and museum is to provide up-to-date high-quality cultural and community activities, including cinematic and theatre productions, and to maintain, develop and promote the Sir Henry Parkes Memorial School of Arts and Museum. Key outputs from the service is the cinema operations, museum operations, functions and events, the theatre, cultural development and the cafe. Underneath that specifically, you'll see community strategic plan links and what those strategies are specific to this service. You'll also then down below that see the delivery program and the operational plan links. So now looking at the actions and programs to be undertaken in this service area in order to deliver on the delivery program, and above it how the delivery program is going to deliver on that community strategic plan. Then we have performance measures for that service, and we detail responsibility as far as officers go. Just to contrast that, I'll now move forward to page 55. And on page 55 is our service area for our transport network. Again, description for our transport network is the provision of a road network, both sealed and unsealed, in a serviceable, affordable, safe and sustainable condition to service the Tenterfield Shire Council's towns and villages and to facilitate the movement of people and goods throughout our region. Obviously, key outputs include the maintenance and construction of sealed and unsealed roads, culverts, causeways, street sweeping, vegetation control, street lighting, bus shelters, car parks, timber and concrete bridges, curb and gutter, signs, guideposts, guardrails, footpaths, cycleways, curb and gutters. So a very, very big service with a lot of outputs. Again, you'll see those community plan strategic links for the service, the actions and programs linking back to the delivery program, key performance measures contained within that short 2-page snapshot about what Council's doing in the next 12 months for that specific service area. And that's obviously replicated in there for each of those 24 services for Council, which you can look over whether you have a specific interest in some or a few or all. It's easy to read and it's condensed in order to give a greater understanding of the community and a greater understanding and accountability to what we do as Council of the organisation. Moving on to the next very important section, we go to page 60, which is the start of our financial summary. A couple of key, quirks in there for people to know. On our expense side of things, our largest expense category for the Council, coming in at 34.8% of our overall cost, annual cost, is from depreciation. It's probably not so surprising when you think that our infrastructure footprint is close to $500 million, and it's being consumed at a rate of $6.4 million per annum. So essentially the depreciation or the reduction in value of our infrastructure footprint is reducing at about a third of our total spend, and obviously it presents a major challenge for us, but one that Council's been able to take on really well in recent times, which I'll speak to a little bit more as far as our overall operating results. From a revenue side of things, rates and annual charges contribute only 29.3% of our overall income. So our money that we pay through our rates and our annual charges, under a third of the total income. We have a number of different sources of which operating and capital grants from other levels of government are very important contributors to our overall income. As I move to the next page, onto page 61, you'll see we start to get into the financial statement side of things. And I'll move straight to possibly the most important line of the lot, and that's the net operating result for the year. Next year, we're projecting that Council will have a net operating surplus of $11.496 million. Before we all get very excited and think it's raining money and looking for ways to spend it, it's important to note that that also includes that figure, the income that we receive for capital grants and contributions. Now that's because of accounting standards, it has to be displayed that way, but it's very important that we normalise the figure by removing those amounts out to get what our actual bottom line is. So once we remove those grants for capital, the capital grants and contributions, what we're returned with for next year is an estimated surplus, again, good, of $1.818 million on a consolidated basis. This is a really strong and healthy position to be in for Council to move forward and to be able to address the challenges that come from us from having such a very, very large infrastructure footprint and a lot of services in a community with a large footprint without a very large population. Moving on to the next section, you'll see on page 64 is the Capital Works Program summary, outlining the Capital Works items for next year, the major ones, and what services they belong to and the costs of each. That pursues over the next couple of pages, and for people interested in major capital works, particularly with regard to some of our networks, water, sewer, transport, parks, open space and gardens, they're detailed within there. Moving right along, our next section, starting on page 68, is the revenue policy of Council. The revenue policy goes through and outlines a lot of the regulatory requirements that we need to, as far as Council's land classifications, rate categories, rate structure, and annual charges to be levied for the next 12 months. People can look through there and see the different areas that specifically relate to them and some comparisons by category, and get an understanding of what the charges proposed are, and particularly in contrast to what they were last year. Two items I'd like to point out, largely because of the change away from the previous 12 months. The first one is on page 74 under water supply consumption charges. Now, the charge for non-residential water, largely business and commercial water, has moved towards a two-step tariff, just like residential in previous years. But with that, the step has been set at 450 kilolitres, the same as residential. Unfortunately, the nexus between 450 kilolitres and annual consumption of a household doesn't bear true back to business. We have received over the last 12 months some submissions to this. Council's listened to those, and what we're proposing next year is to actually raise the two-step tariff to 800 kilolitres to make that a little bit more balanced for our non-residential users, and obviously to give them an opportunity still to be able to change some of their practices in order to become more water wise, or to allow their consumers to become more water wise, so that we start to protect or continue to protect that finite resource. It also is important that we keep the two-step tariff. It is considered as better practice, and it also gives a good market signalling mechanism to people, particularly those businesses, that it is a finite resource and we need to manage it carefully. The next item I'd like to outline is on page 78 under waste management collection charges. And for some people of interest, we'll note in here that the Mount Lindsay Road collection area is still listed as a rateable area, and it's outlined on the maps. Council, for people's information, Council has, over the last 12 months, had a period at which it's run a trial in that area for the collection of waste, and at the end of that period there's a commitment from Council to then look to discuss with the community and see whether there is a desire to have that service continue. Council has recently resolved to undertake a survey, and that's currently being run, and at the end of that the results will be collated and considered by Council about whether that continues. However, if we didn't include it in the draft document, we wouldn't be able to levy the fee if that's the way Council decides to move next year. So it's been included, but people need not worry, because the report will be coming back to May with the results of that survey, and if Council then elects not to pursue a collection charge in that area, or they continue to, then we'll reflect that in the final version of this document that will be adopted in May as well. Welcome people's submissions on that, but largely that will be considered as part of that survey that's being undertaken at the moment with people in that area. Finally, moving on to page 83, you'll see the maps that I've referenced a couple of times earlier that outline where fees and charges are applicable, and residential, business, mining and farmland rating categories, and that continues right over until page 97. At page 98 we get to our last section of the operational plan, and that is the annual fees and charges for users, or user fees and charges for the next year. In there you'll see all the charges outlined, be they dictated by a regulatory point of view, whether they are subsidised, cost recovery plus. You'll see in the line items that that's outlined. You'll also see the fee or charge that was in place for the last financial year and the one being proposed for the next year. In all, that's our document in a few minutes. It's out on public exhibition at the moment. We would really welcome submissions from people and further input of their thoughts in all the different areas. You can do that up until close of business Wednesday the 10th of May, as we mentioned before, either through mail to PO Box 214 in Tenterfield, or by email council@tenterfield.newsouthwales.gov.au. And just in wrapping up, I'd also like to acknowledge all the hard work of the team here at Council in putting together this document and everything that goes behind this and the broader IPNR framework, specifically to staff in each service area working with their managers to collate data and to put forward plans, and then the management team working closely together with the Council through a community engagement program, and then a lot of technical work in order to bring this forward. It's greatly appreciated. We have fantastic staff at Council. We really look forward to having further and further engagement with the community over the next little while moving forward, starting with our operational plan for next year and the 4-year delivery program for our Council over the upcoming term. Thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. We look forward to your submissions. Thank you.